The great crystal halls of the Galactic Council Station floated in the darkness of space, spinning slowly around the peaceful world of Zentara Prime. Inside those halls, fear filled the air like a thick fog. Ambassador Kethfer stood at the center of the emergency meeting, his tall blue form shaking as he spoke to the gathered representatives of 100 different worlds. "The Void Swarm has taken another system," he said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. 12 worlds are gone. 12 entire civilizations, consumed in less than a month. The aliens around him made sounds of distress in their various languages. Some had tentacles that writhed with worry. Others had wings that fluttered nervously. All of them shared the same terror that had been growing stronger each day, since the ancient enemy had awakened. Commander Zareth of the Hegemony Defense Force stepped forward. Her 6 arms moved quickly as she activated the holographic display. In the center of the room, images of destroyed worlds appeared, showing nothing but empty space where once proud planets had orbited their stars. "Every fleet we send is destroyed," she reported. "The swarm learns from each battle. Our plasma weapons work the first time, then they adapt. Our shields protect us once, then they find a way through. We are fighting an enemy that becomes stronger. With each defeat, we give it." The commander's words sent ripples of fear through the assembly. In the 10,000 years since the Galactic Council had formed, they had never faced a threat like this. Wars between member species had been small. Conflicts settled through diplomacy and trade agreements. The galaxy had known peace for so long that most species had forgotten how to fight real wars. Dr. Valtaran, the Council's chief scientist, moved to the front of the chamber. His green skin had turned pale with worry, and his large eyes darted nervously around the room as he prepared to speak about something that had been forbidden for centuries. "There is one option we have not discussed," he said quietly. "In our restricted archives, we have records of a species from the Outer Rim, a world we classified as uninhabitable. The beings there evolved on what we designated as a Class 12. Deathworld." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Deathworlds were the stuff of nightmares, planets so hostile that civilized life could not exist there. The Council had found several such worlds over the millennia, but they had always been empty of intelligent life. The idea that something could actually evolve and thrive on such a place seemed impossible. "You speak of the humans," said Counselor Mirandos, her voice filled with disgust. "Those savages from the world they call Earth. We quarantine them. For good reason. They are violent, primitive, and dangerous to themselves and others." Dr. Veltaran nodded slowly. "Yes, the humans. Their world has gravity twice what most of us consider normal. The atmosphere is filled with a gas so reactive it would poison most of our species. The surface is covered with liquid that would dissolve our ships. Storms rage across the planet with winds that would tear apart our cities. And yet, they not only survive there, they flourish." The debate that followed was heated. Many of the council members refused to even consider contacting such barbaric creatures. They had built their civilization on principles of peace, cooperation, and rational thought. The idea of asking for help from beings who lived on a world of constant death and violence went against everything they believed. But as the argument continued, more reports arrived. The Void Swarm had consumed the industrial world of Kalexton. 3 billion beings had been absorbed into the mechanical plague, their consciousness trapped forever in the swarm's collective mind. The manufacturing facilities that had supplied half the galaxy with essential goods were now being converted into more swarm units. "We are running out of time," Ambassador Kethfer said, his voice breaking. "At this rate, the swarm will reach the core worlds within 6 months. Our children, our families, our entire way of life will be gone." The great chamber fell silent. Through the transparent walls, they could see the stars that had been their home for thousands of generations. Soon those stars might be dark, consumed by an enemy that turned everything it touched into more of itself. What do we know about their military capabilities? Asked Fleet Admiral Zixthar, the military commander of the Andromedan Navy. Dr. Velteran accessed the restricted files. Very little. They have achieved basic spaceflight and have settlements on nearby worlds in their system. They have developed nuclear weapons, which they have used against their own species. Our analysis suggests they are constantly at war with each other. Constantly at war? Counselor Mirandos shook her head in disbelief. How can a species survive if it is always fighting itself? That is exactly why they might be able to help us, Dr. Velteran replied. They understand warfare in ways we have forgotten. They have spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival against their own world and each other. The vote was called as another urgent message arrived. The Void Swarm had been detected moving toward the Beta Centauri system, home to 15 billion beings. If it reached that system, it would grow large enough to consume entire sectors of the galaxy in a matter of days. One by one, the council members cast their votes. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear. Fear had overcome their pride and prejudice. They would send a diplomatic mission to the death world called Earth. Ambassador Kethvar volunteered to lead the mission. Despite the risks, no one knew what these humans might do to visitors from the stars. They might attack on sight, or try to capture alien technology, or worse. But the alternative was the end of everything they had built over millennia of peaceful cooperation. The diplomatic ship Harmony's voice was prepared for the journey. It was equipped with the most advanced shields and weapons the Council could provide, though many doubted such protection would matter against beings who had conquered a death world. As the ship prepared to leave, Dr. Velteran made one final entry in his research log. We go to seek help from creatures we have always considered our inferiors. We may discover that in the art of survival, they are our superiors in every way. The Harmony's voice engaged its faster-than-light drive and disappeared into the void, carrying the galaxy's last hope toward a small blue world on the edge of known space. Behind them, the Void Swarm continued its relentless advance, consuming everything in its path as it grew stronger with each victory. The fate of countless civilizations now rested in the hands of the species the galaxy had dismissed as primitive savages. Soon, they would learn whether the beings who called themselves human were truly as dangerous as their death world had made them. The Harmony's voice dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system with a flash of blue light. Within seconds, alarms began ringing on human ships throughout the system. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee in his quarters aboard the battleship Defiant when his communication officer burst through the door. Captain, we have contact. Unknown vessel just appeared near the outer marker, Lieutenant Lisa Chong reported, her eyes wide with excitement. It's not one of ours, sir. The design is completely alien. Captain Morrison set down his coffee cup and followed her to the bridge. The main screen showed a sleek vessel, unlike anything in human records. It was beautiful in a way that human ships were not, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift color in the starlight. Any hostile actions? Morrison asked as he took his command chair. None, sir. They're broadcasting on standard diplomatic frequencies. The Universal Translator is working on their language now. On Luna Base, Admiral Kate Sullivan received the contact report while reviewing battle plans for the Colonial Defense Fleet. Her staff officers gathered around the holographic display as the alien vessel's image appeared. First contact, she said quietly. This is what we've been preparing for. She activated the communication system that linked all human defense forces. All ships, condition yellow. Peaceful contact protocols are in effect. Admiral Sullivan selected Captain Morrison. to lead the first meeting. His combat experience in the asteroid wars had taught him to stay calm under pressure. She also chose Dr. Alex Rodriguez, Earth's top expert on alien communication, and Major Sam Turner, a veteran soldier who could assess any military threat. Meeting was arranged at a neutral point in space, halfway between Earth and the alien ship. Human engineers worked around the clock to build a small space station from salvaged freighter parts. It was rough and functional, nothing like the elegant structures humans had seen in science fiction movies, but it would do the job. Ambassador Kethver and his diplomatic team transported over to the meeting station using their advanced technology. They expected to find primitive beings barely capable of building crude rockets. Instead, they discovered that humans had constructed orbital manufacturing facilities, mining operations throughout the asteroid belt, and colonies on 3 different worlds. The first sight of humans surprised the aliens completely. Captain Morrison and his team were waiting in the station's main conference room, dressed in crisp military uniforms. The humans looked calm and professional, not like the savage barbarians the aliens had expected. Dr. Rodriguez activated his translation equipment as the aliens entered. His enhanced computer implants allowed him to process their language quickly, building a working vocabulary within minutes. The cultural exchange began awkwardly, with both sides trying to understand each other. "Welcome to our solar system," Captain Morrison said, standing to greet his visitors. "I am Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force." Ambassador Kethver bowed in the style of his people. "I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Galactic Council. We come seeking assistance in a matter of great urgency." The ambassador began explaining the crisis that threatened their civilization. He showed holographic recordings of the Void Swarm's attacks, expecting the humans to react with fear and horror. Instead, Major Turner leaned forward with professional interest. "What are their tactical capabilities?" Turner asked. "How do they coordinate their attacks? What weapons have you tried against them?" The question surprised the aliens. Where they expected terror, they found analytical curiosity. Dr. Rodriguez studied the swarm's technology, while Captain Morrison examined their military formations. The humans began discussing strategy with an eagerness that both fascinated and worried their visitors. "You seem very interested in warfare," Ambassador Kethver observed carefully. Captain Morrison smiled. "We've had a lot of practice. Our world isn't a peaceful place. We've been fighting for survival since our species began." The conference was interrupted when General Casey Brooks joined via quantum communication from Earth's military headquarters. Her image appeared on the main screen, showing a tough woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. "Captain Morrison, what's the situation?" she asked. "The aliens are facing an enemy that's consuming their entire galaxy, General. They've come asking for help." General Brooks studied the alien delegation for a moment. "How many ships can you provide for the counteroffensive?" she asked directly. The question caught Ambassador Kethver completely off guard. He had expected to spend days convincing these primitive beings to offer small amounts of assistance. Instead, they were already assuming humanity would join a galactic war. "You would fight for us?" he asked in amazement. "We are strangers to you. This is not your war." Major Turner stood up. "If this swarm consumes the galaxy, it will eventually reach Earth. Better to stop it now than wait for it to come to us." Dr. Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "Besides, you came to us for help. We don't abandon people who need us." The aliens exchanged confused glances. These humans were nothing like what their records had described. They showed no fear of galactic warfare, no hesitation about fighting an enemy they had never seen. Instead, they seemed almost eager for the challenge. Admiral Sullivan's voice came through the communication system. "We'll need 48 hours to coordinate with our colonial governments and military branches. Can you provide detailed star charts of the affected regions? Ambassador Kethfer found himself negotiating with beings who treated interstellar war as a routine military operation. The humans asked practical questions about supply lines, fleet coordination, and casualty estimates. They discussed tactics that would horrify civilized species, including the deliberate sacrifice of ships and crews to achieve strategic objectives. Your people are very different from what we expected, the ambassador said finally. Captain Morrison laughed. What did you expect? Primitive savages who would cower at the mention of galactic warfare. We stopped being primitive when we learned to make fire, Major Turner replied. And we've never cowered from a fight in our entire history. The meeting concluded with humanity's offer to deploy their full military might against the Void Swarm. Admiral Sullivan promised a complete response within 2 days, including fleet assignments and strategic planning. The aliens prepared too, returned to their ship, still struggling to understand what they had discovered. As the Harmony's voice prepared to leave with humanity's answer, Ambassador Kethfer made his final observations. These Deathworlders showed none of the expected brutality, yet their casual acceptance of galactic warfare revealed a martial culture. Beyond anything in Council records, the galaxy was about to discover what happened when beings from a death world decided to go to war. 3 weeks later, the edge of Council space witnessed something that had never been seen before. Admiral Kate Sullivan's task force dropped out of hyperspace in the Rigel sector, where the Void Swarm had just finished consuming the mining world of Beta Centauri 7. The human fleet stretched across space like a steel wall, 200 warships of every size and type. The flagship Enterprise led the formation, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed most alien vessels. Behind it came heavy cruisers, destroyers, and countless smaller ships. Every hull was scarred from previous battles, built for war rather than beauty. The human ships looked rough and dangerous compared to the elegant Council vessels. Commander Paul Hayes aboard the heavy cruiser Warrior made contact with the scattered remains of the alien fleet. Fleet Admiral Zixthar of the Andromedan Navy had been fighting a losing battle for days, watching his beautiful ships get torn apart by the mechanical swarm. Human vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Zixthar, came the transmission. We are grateful for your arrival, but I must warn you. The swarm has adapted to all our weapons. Nothing we have can hurt them anymore. Admiral Sullivan's voice came back strong and clear. Admiral Zixthar, this is Admiral Sullivan. We appreciate the warning. We'll handle it from here. Colonel Nina. Parker reviewed the tactical situation from her position aboard the assault ship Hammer. Her Marines were ready for boarding actions, something the civilized galaxy had not seen in centuries. The alien military doctrine focused on preserving life and minimizing damage. Colonel Parker's approach was very different. Marines, listen up, she announced over the ship's communication system. The aliens fight to protect their pretty ships. We fight to win. Remember that. The first battle began when a Void Swarm scouting force encountered the combined fleet. Near the Proxima Relay Station, the mechanical ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had destroyed dozens of alien fleets. The Council ships engaged first, firing their advanced energy weapons at the swarm. Vessels. The colorful beams struck the enemy shields and scattered harmlessly, just as they had in every previous battle. The swarm had learned to defend against every weapon the civilized galaxy possessed. Captain Rick Davis commanded the destroyer Vengeance, a small ship compared to the massive swarm vessels. When the alien weapons failed, he did something that shocked every observer. He ordered a direct ramming attack against the largest enemy ship. All hands, brace for impact, Davis announced calmly. It's been an honor serving with you. The Vengeance accelerated to full speed, its experimental fusion torpedoes armed and ready. The crew sang an old Earth battle song as their ship drove straight into the swarm vessel's hull. The explosion that followed lit up space like a small sun, completely destroying both ships. Fleet Admiral Zixthar watched in horror as more human ships followed the same tactic. Commander Lisa Thompson drove the frigate Relentless directly into a group of swarm fighters, her reactor core set to overload. The blast took out 6 enemy vessels along with her own ship. "They're using their ships as weapons," Zixthar said in shock. "They're destroying themselves to hurt the enemy." The human tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Civilized warfare preserved ships and lives whenever possible. Human warfare treated everything as expendable if it helped win the battle. The aliens watched in amazement as Earth's finest vessels turned themselves into guided missiles. Major Tony Garcia led a boarding party from the assault transport Fury directly onto a swarm vessel. His Marines cut through the enemy hull with plasma torches and fought their way inside. The corridors were filled with mechanical horrors that would have terrified most species into surrender. "Keep moving," Garcia shouted to his men as they advanced through the alien ship. "Plant the charges and get out." The Marines fought room by room against creatures that looked like mechanical spiders mixed with cutting tools. They used flamethrowers, explosives, and close combat weapons to clear their path. When they reached the ship's core, they placed nuclear charges and ran for their escape pods. The explosion tore the swarm vessel apart from the inside, something the aliens had thought impossible. The mechanical plague's adaptive defenses worked against external attacks, but they had never faced enemies willing to fight inside their own ships. Commodore Rachel Bennett commanded the carrier group centered on the ship Intrepid, her fighter. Pilots volunteered for missions that everyone knew were suicide attacks. The small fighters could not survive direct combat with swarm vessels, but they could damage critical systems if they struck the right targets. "Remember, we're not trying to come back," Bennett told her pilots. "We're trying to take as many of them with us as possible." Wave after wave of human fighters launched kamikaze attacks against swarm processing nodes. Each pilot who died weakened the enemy's ability to adapt to new threats. The aliens watched in stunned silence as Earth's best pilots threw their lives away for strategic advantage. Admiral Sullivan coordinated the battle from the Enterprise's command center. Her staff officers calculated acceptable loss ratios and target priorities with cold efficiency. While the Council forces tried to save every ship, the humans focused entirely on destroying the enemy. "Status report," Sullivan demanded. "We've lost 30 ships, Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "but we've destroyed the entire scouting force." "Acceptable losses," Sullivan replied. "Begin preparations for the next engagement." The aliens could not understand such thinking. 30 ships meant 30,000 human lives lost, but the humans were already planning their next attack. They analyzed the battle data to improve their tactics, treating the deaths as learning experiences rather than tragedies. Fleet Admiral Zixthar requested a private meeting with Admiral Sullivan after the battle. He needed to understand how these beings could be so ruthless, yet so effective. "Admiral, I must ask," he said carefully, "how can you treat the loss of so many lives so calmly?" Sullivan looked at him with tired eyes. "Admiral, we fight wars to win them, not to feel good about ourselves. Every person who died today chose to be here. They knew the risks, and they accepted them. But surely you must mourn them?" "We'll mourn them when the war is over," Sullivan replied. "Right now, we have work to do." The first battle was over, but both sides knew it was just the beginning. The Void Swarm had learned that the humans were different from any enemy they had faced before. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when Deathworlders decided to fight a real war. The human strategy began to show real results as Admiral Kate Sullivan's fleet pushed deeper into Void Swarm territory. The mechanical plague had consumed half the galaxy, but now it faced an enemy that fought unlike anything in its vast memory. Banks, at the Battle of Kepler Station, Captain Ben Wright of the battleship Defiance proved that human determination could overcome any obstacle. The swarm had turned Kepler Station into a massive processing facility, converting captured aliens into mechanical components. Millions of beings were trapped inside, their minds linked to the swarm's collective consciousness, while their bodies were slowly transformed into machine parts. "We're going in," Captain Wright announced to his crew. "Load all fusion warheads and set the reactor for manual overload." His ship carried enough explosive power to destroy a small moon. The plan was simple and terrifying. The Defiance would punch through the swarm's defenses and detonate inside the processing facility, destroying everything within a 100-kilometer radius. "Sir, that will kill everyone aboard," his first officer pointed out. "Better than leaving them to become machines," Wright replied. "All hands, prepare for final approach." The Defiance accelerated toward the massive swarm structure, taking heavy fire from defensive weapons. The ship's armor melted under the assault, but Wright kept his course steady. When they reached the station's core, he triggered the overload. Sequenced personally, the explosion lit up 3 star systems, completely destroying the processing facility and freeing the trapped minds of 10 million beings. The price was the complete loss of Wright's ship and crew, but the strategic victory was enormous. Colonel Amy Foster commanded ground forces during the liberation of Xerion Prime, where swarm drones had begun converting the planet's population. Her Marines landed in the middle of a nightmare, fighting through cities filled with half-converted civilians and mechanical horrors. "Stay together and keep moving," Foster shouted over the sound of plasma fire. "Don't look at the conversion chambers. Just focus on the mission." Her troops fought building by building through streets littered with the remains of a once proud civilization. The swarm had turned schools into processing centers and hospitals into drone factories. Foster's Marines pressed forward, despite seeing things that would haunt their dreams forever. The casualty rate was horrific. 60% of her forces were killed or wounded in the first day alone. But the Marines kept advancing, using flamethrowers and explosives to clear each structure. They saved what civilians they could and destroyed everything else. Dr. Helen Craig made the most important discovery of the war while analyzing captured swarm technology aboard the research ship Discovery. Working around the clock with her team of scientists, she found a critical flaw in the enemy's adaptive systems. "The swarm cannot understand deliberate self-destruction," she reported to Admiral Sullivan. "Their calculations assume rational self-preservation. They can adapt to any weapon or tactic that makes logical sense, but sacrifice attacks are completely outside their programming." This discovery explained why human tactics were so effective. Every other species in the galaxy fought to survive. Humans were willing to die to achieve their objectives, creating scenarios the swarm's artificial intelligence could not predict or counter. Commander Steve Mills led the experimental stealth ship Shadow on the most dangerous mission of the war. His crew volunteered for a one-way trip into the swarm's core systems, using advanced cloaking technology to penetrate their central command nexus. "We won't be coming back from this one," Mills told his crew before they departed. "But the intelligence we gather could end this war." The Shadow slipped past swarm patrols and defensive networks, its stealth systems hiding them from detection. For 3 days, they mapped the enemy's command structure and located the primary control matrix that coordinated the entire mechanical plague. When swarm security finally detected them, Mills made the ultimate sacrifice. He transmitted all their intelligence data to the human fleet while his ship was being torn apart by enemy fire. The information arrived just as the Shadow exploded, giving Admiral Sullivan the target she needed, General Lavra. Hughes coordinated the final assault from the command ship Liberation. The battle plan required simultaneous attacks on 12 different targets, with each assault group expected to destroy their objectives regardless of survival prospects. "This is it," Hughes announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "Everything we've fought for comes down to the next 6 hours. Make every shot count." Captain Matt Johnson of the heavy cruiser Thunderbolt led the diversionary attack against the swarm's outer defenses. His squadron of 15 ships faced the enemy force, 10 times their size, drawing attention while the main assault force approached the control matrix. "All ships engage at will," Johnson ordered. "Let's give them something to remember us by." The battle was brutal and one-sided. Johnson's ships were outgunned and outnumbered, but they fought with desperate courage. When the Thunderbolt's weapons failed, Johnson rammed his damaged vessel into the swarm's largest processing ship, buying precious time for the main assault. Colonel Sandra Clark led the Marine attack on the swarm's command center, fighting through kilometers of mechanical corridors with her surviving troops. They used every weapon in their arsenal against enemies that adapted to each new threat. The Marines advanced through chambers filled with the absorbed consciousness of 1,000,000 different species. The psychological horror nearly broke their minds. But they pressed forward. Clark's troops had trained for this moment their entire careers. "Keep moving," Clark shouted as her men fought through the final defensive line. "We're almost there." Lieutenant Commander Rob Taylor piloted the final assault shuttle toward the swarm's central core, carrying humanity's most powerful nuclear device. His escort fighters died one by one as they fought through the defensive fire, but Taylor's shuttle reached its target. His team fought to the core chamber, where they found the heart of the mechanical plague. The quantum processors that controlled billions of swarm units across the galaxy hummed with malevolent intelligence. "Set the charges," Taylor ordered. "We end this here." The nuclear device was designed to create a quantum cascade failure, destroying the swarm's entire network simultaneously. Taylor's team activated the weapon and prepared for the end. The explosion propagated through the swarm's quantum-entangled systems faster than light itself. Across the galaxy, mechanical units suddenly stopped moving as their central intelligence died. The plague that had threatened to consume everything was finally destroyed, but the cost was enormous. 85% of the human fleet had been destroyed in the final campaign. Over 200,000 of Earth's finest personnel had given their lives to save a galaxy that had once called them savages. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of one of the few surviving human ships, watching debris fields that had once been proud vessels. The mechanical plague was dead, but the price of victory would be remembered forever. "Admiral," her communication officer reported, "we're receiving congratulations from the Galactic Council." Sullivan nodded tiredly. "Acknowledge their message. Tell them we did what was necessary." The galaxy was safe, but the humans who had saved it would never be the same. They had proven that sometimes salvation required the ultimate sacrifice, and Earth's children had paid that price without hesitation. 6 months after the Void Swarm's destruction, the Galactic Council built a new station from the recovered materials of defeated swarm vessels. The ceremony hall was filled with representatives from every species in the galaxy, all gathered to honor the humans who had saved their civilization. Ambassador Kethfor stood at the center of the great chamber, wearing formal robes that marked him as the new human affairs liaison. His role had become one of the most important positions in the council, bridging the gap between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. "Today we honor those who gave everything so that we might live," he announced to the assembled crowd. "The humans who came from their death world and fought battles we could not fight ourselves." Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after the campaign, represented Earth's military at the gathering. His face bore scars from the final battles, and his uniform carried ribbons for actions that most species could not even imagine. Beside him stood Dr. Alex Rodriguez, whose analysis of swarm technology had revolutionized galactic understanding of artificial intelligence. The memorial wall stretched across one entire side of the ceremony hall. Carved into its surface were the names of every human who had died in the campaign. The list was staggeringly long, covering nearly the entire wall in small, precise lettering. General Casey Brooks, now Supreme Commander of the Human Defense Corps, addressed the assembly about Earth's new role in galactic affairs. Her speech outlined plans for joint defense stations throughout Council space, though she privately doubted whether other species could learn human military methods. "We will establish rapid response forces in every sector," she announced. "When threats arise, humanity will be ready to face them." The Council's recognition ceremony revealed the true scope of human losses. Of the 300,000 personnel who had participated in the campaign, fewer than 45,000 had survived. Entire ship crews had died to ensure mission success, their names now part of galactic history. Dr. Sarah Kim, the new director of Human-Alien Relations, explained Earth's perspective to confused diplomats who still struggled to understand human psychology. She spoke in simple terms about the difference between survival and victory. "Other species fight to live," she told them. "Humans fight to win. When we decide something must be done, we do it regardless of the cost to ourselves." The cultural differences remained vast, despite everything they had been through together. The aliens had built their civilization on avoiding conflict and preserving life. Humans had evolved in constant struggle, developing a willingness to sacrifice that peaceful species found incomprehensible. President Jennifer Adams of the United Earth government announced humanity's expanded role in galactic affairs. Earth would become the galaxy's primary military force, establishing defense stations and training facilities throughout Council space. "We never wanted the warriors for the galaxy," she said quietly. "But if that is what the universe requires, then that is what we will be." The political implications of the war's outcome became clear as various alien factions competed for human alliance. The Villani Republic offered their most advanced technology in exchange for military protection. The hegemony proposed economic partnerships that would make Earth wealthy beyond imagination. Admiral Morrison met privately with Fleet Admiral Zixthar after the ceremony. The Andromedan commander had watched human tactics throughout the war, and the experience had changed his understanding of warfare completely. "I have studied military strategy for 3 centuries, Zixthar said, "but watching humans fight taught me that everything I knew was wrong. You do not fight to preserve your forces. You fight to destroy the enemy, no matter what it costs." "That's the difference between us," Morrison replied. "You fight wars to minimize casualties. We fight wars to end them." Colonel Nina Parker, now commanding the Human Expeditionary Force, oversaw training facilities where alien military personnel attempted to learn human combat methods. The results were disappointing, as most species lacked the psychological conditioning necessary for truly effective warfare. "They want to learn our tactics," Parker reported to her superiors, "but they cannot accept our willingness to die. Without that, the tactics are just meaningless movements." The training programs continued despite limited success. Some alien species showed promise, particularly those from harsh worlds with histories of conflict. But the vast majority of Council military forces remained focused on preservation rather than victory. The final scene of the ceremony took place in the Hall of Remembrance, where Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the memorial wall listing humanity's fallen heroes. Ambassador Kethver joined her, his alien features showing genuine respect for the sacrifices made. "We called you Deathworlders because we thought you were savage," he said quietly. "Now we understand that you are simply willing to face death, so others might live." Sullivan nodded slowly, reading the names of friends and colleagues who would never see their home world again. Someone has to stand guard. Someone has to be willing to pay the price when everything is at stake. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the nature of survival and sacrifice. The most advanced and civilized species had been helpless against the void swarm, saved only by beings they had considered primitive barbarians. Earth's reputation as a death world had transformed from a mark of shame into a badge of honor. The humans who had once been quarantined for their own protection now served as guardians for civilizations that had forgotten how to fight as the ceremony concluded. Human patrol ships departed for their new positions throughout Council space. Each vessel carried crews ready to face whatever threats might emerge from the darkness between stars. The Deathworlders had found their purpose among the stars. 1 year later, when the first of the new threats emerged from beyond the galactic rim, the aliens no longer debated whether to contact Earth. They simply sent the message that had become standard across the galaxy. "Humanity, we need you again." The response came back within hours, transmitted from Earth's military headquarters to every corner of Council space. It was brief and to the point, carrying all the determination that had saved the galaxy once before. On our way, some species in the universe were born to create peace and beauty among the stars. Others were born to defend it. The galaxy had finally learned which kind of species called the Death World Earth their home. The humans who had rescued the galaxy stood ready to do it again whenever the darkness threatened to return. They were Deathworlders, and that was exactly what the universe needed them to be.